Welcome to A Slob Comes Clean, the podcast. I'm Dana White. I blog mostly daily over at aslobcomesclean.com as Noni. Noni is short for anonymous, and that's my chosen name because that's where I talk about my deep, dark secret, which is that I am a slob. When I say I'm a slob, that means I've accepted who I am, but it doesn't mean I've accepted that my house has to be a disaster all the time. It just means that I have to come up with ways that work for my family and my home to keep our house under control so that we can live in it and enjoy it. This is podcast number 18. I've taken 2 weeks off, not really intentionally, but I've had a lot going on. And I just want to make sure I thank those of you who have emailed to let me know that the last several podcasts were too quiet. I think I have figured it out, but just in case this podcast still doesn't have great sound, make sure that you email me. I appreciate any feedback that I can get because I am not a technical person. And so I'm just kind of doing what I know to do, but I will try to figure it out and get things better. And I hope this is better. So like I said, this is podcast number 18. I will put show notes up with this podcast at aslobcomesclean.com/podcasts. You can click on podcast number 18 for the things that I mentioned within this podcast. But just in case you get there and I haven't specifically linked to podcast number 18, there is already a link within that page that will take you to all of my podcasts, and that will have podcast number 18 there within that. So this podcast is going to be about clothing as clutter, specifically decluttering clothing. Yeah. I didn't say decluttering closets because that's a whole nother thing. Because I don't know about you, but my closet has a lot more than just clothing in it. But we're going to specifically talk about clothing, which I will fully admit, and I've talked about a lot on my blog very openly and shown pictures, that I struggle with this because I like clothes. I wouldn't say that I'm a fashionista by any means, but I do sure like to have clothes. And so we're going to talk, which I mean, you should be glad for that. But anyway, we're going to talk specifically about decluttering clothing, and we will get into that in just a minute. Also wanted to make sure that you know that at aslobcomesclean.com/connect, you can find me on all my social media channels, Instagram, Twitter, Google Plus, everywhere, all over the place. And I would love for you to join me in different places on Facebook. We are now over 43,000 Facebook fans, which is just kind of crazy. And I hope what that does, I mean, first of all, it makes me excited because, well, people are getting kind of into the craze. But I hope that what it means for people is that we can see that we're not alone in this. I really, truly, as I've said before, I really, truly believed that I was the only person in the world who struggled like I did. And I've constantly been amazed as the blog has grown to find out that I'm definitely not the only person. And 43,000 is just kind of an encouraging number to know that at least that many people, weren't embarrassed to click like on A Slob Comes Clean, even though that's a horrible, awful word that I do hate, but I'm glad that I've used it. So I've talked about that in previous podcasts. If you're just following on this one, if you want to hear my slob story, basically my whole background, go to those first 6 or 7 podcasts, and I tell that story within there. So, okay, let's start talking about clothing. As I said, I've taken 2 weeks off, so I'm not going to go back through all of the things that I've written about in those couple of weeks, but specifically 2 posts that are clothing focused that I do want to mention. Just this week, I wrote a post called 2 Brown Cardigans, and it basically was about, I took my mother-in-law to the mall a couple weeks ago, and I thought I was dressed okay, except that I had on my droopy jeans, the ones that fit when you first put them on, and then they're totally too loose to even stay up in an hour after they've stretched out. So by the time I got there, they were totally stretched out, and I thought I was okay because I had on a brown cardigan that was going to hide everything it needed to hide. And yet it didn't, because it kept falling open in the front. It was just one of those slippery kinds, and it just didn't work with my shape very well. So I was extremely uncomfortable the whole entire time because I was trying to push her wheelchair and hold my jeans up with one hand, and just so you know, it's really hard to push a wheelchair with one hand. But anyway, so I got home, and it's like I hadn't even realized that I had recently bought another brown cardigan, which I love. I mean, it falls perfectly. It's soft. It's lovely. And when I realized I had two, the obvious thing was to get rid of the one that wasn't good. I mean, it didn't do its job that it was supposed to do. And I had two. I didn't need two. And yet, for some reason, for my brain, and evidently for the brains of a lot of people who commented on that post, sometimes it's hard to be rational about that, because you want to think, well, but what if one's dirty and I need it? Oh, well, I don't need two brown cardigans. But what cracked me up in that post was how many people, and maybe it's you, and I'm not laughing at you because I totally understand, but a lot of people wanted to say, or did say, but they're two different shades of brown. And I thought, that is so me. That's so me to rationalize why I should keep it instead of having to prove to myself why I should keep it, if that makes any sense. Because the truth is, the one that I got rid of, it didn't fit me right. It wasn't a comfortable thing to wear. The one I kept was very comfortable. But for some reason, it's easy for me to say, you know what? They're two different shades, so maybe I'll need them. But as we're going to talk about today, it helps me to just get rid of clothes. I know I have too many clothes. I mean, that's just a fact. It is. I mean, it's really a first world problem that I know is a ridiculous problem to even have, but I have too many clothes. So I have to look for reasons and opportunities to get rid of things. And so that's what I'm doing. So other things that were clothing related, I wrote a post called 3 Ways to Declutter Ripped or Stained Clothing. My husband, I was very proud of him, but we decluttered the kids' rooms when they were off school one day. And he got into the spirit of things, and he went in and got his, He went in and he started going through his t-shirts. I'm pretty sure there were some t-shirts in that pile that he ended up getting rid of that I had put in the trash at some point, and he had pulled back out because it was a mowing shirt or whatever. He's going to wear that for yard work. Well, he came in and he said, "Can I get rid of this?" And I just looked at his face and I thought, I totally understand what he's going through right now. No, I have no emotional attachment to his holy t-shirt that, from youth camp 30 years ago, whatever. I don't have that personal attachment, but I have personal attachment to my own clothes that I have to, go through. So I saw him in his face. He was looking at it thinking, I probably should get rid of this. So we talked through it and we said, okay, how many shirts do you honestly need for mowing? And he said, well, you know what? Sometimes even when it takes me 2 days to do a big yard job, I'll often wear the same shirt the second day because I don't want to get another one dirty. And I said, okay, then you probably don't need 15 mowing shirts, right? And, we talked through it, and he was willing. He got rid of a huge pile of old t-shirts that didn't fit right, or you know what, I really just honestly never choose to wear this. So I was really proud of him because I know it's been a struggle for me, but as I talked about in an earlier podcast about husbands and decluttering, and sometimes it's frustrating when other people are attached to their stuff that you don't understand. But really, I'm a big believer in declutter your stuff first, which is what I was doing and the kids and I were doing. And then as he saw that, then he was encouraged to go and, get rid of his own stuff. So anyway, but as he did that, he was like, well, what do I do with it? Because he had some shirts that I don't know how it happens, but it seems like up around the neck, the collar, not the actual neck part, but, kind of below that, his t-shirts often end up just threadbare and with holes in them. It's like, what do you do with t-shirts when they get to that point? Because, let's just be honest. You don't want to donate. Nobody's going to buy that in a thrift store. Let's just, be realistic there. But at the same time, what do? Do you just throw it in the trash when it's fabric? I know that that's a mental block that a lot of people have and that I have had to. I will say I don't think that's a bad thing. If you need to throw it in the trash to get it out, then go ahead and do that. But because that is a common kind of a stopping, a paralyzing thing, not knowing what to do with it. I wrote a post called 3 Ways to Get Rid of Ripped or Stained Clothing, because that is a legitimate issue and concern that people have, is they just don't know what to do. And then the tendency for me is to just not do anything because I don't know what the best thing is to do. So I'm just going to wait until somehow it's just going to come to me in a big flash of light to know what to do. But anyway, that doesn't work very well. It ends up with clutter all over my house. So I wrote this post because different ways that I have either found personally or that you as listeners and blog readers have shared, different ways that you can get rid of stuff. First of all, it's important to note that many donation places, charities, actually want stained and ripped clothes. I have been told this by I live in a small town. We don't have a lot of donation places, but 2 different ones have specifically said to me, please bring us your stained and ripped clothing. One of them was at a little ladies' luncheon or something. She was talking about their ministry. And she specifically made a point, even though she was talking about other stuff, she said, I just want to make sure y'all know that we really want your stained and ripped clothing because they sell it by the pound to rag makers, to, people who do whatever, who make rags out of old clothing. So it really is all that whole recycling mentality that you so want things to not just go in the landfill. A lot of these places, they have the access to sell, and then they get the money for their charity or their ministry, whatever it is that they do, through that. So obviously, if it really upsets you and you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure my place does, call them and ask them. It'll take 2 seconds to call and ask and see if they do that. Okay. And maybe that'll determine which place in your town you're going to donate to, is the place that will take the ripped and stained clothing. But I specifically have had, like I said, 2 different people. A man came and picked up my stuff, and we weren't talking about that. He was just picking up my donations, and he said, hey, I just want to make sure you know that anytime you have ripped or stained clothing, we want it because we can sell that to the rag makers. If you feel guilty about it, go ahead and separate that into a different bag and put a little label on it that says ripped and stained. But the truth is, we want to make it as easy for the volunteers as we possibly can, but they do have to go through everything. They have to, pull it out of the bag and all that. So, if it's a matter of it's going to sit around my house out of guilt versus, I'm going to get it out of here, just go ahead and donate that. Okay. The other thing, and this is something else that I do personally, is making cleaning rags out of old jeans or t-shirts or really anything that, is absorbent at all. A lot of times there's messes that require, a little bit more than just whatever. But sometimes there's messes that, you can use that, and then, you don't feel as guilty about either throwing it away, or it's easy to rewash. I've made homemade cleaning wipes, out of, for my kids to use, where I just use a little bit of Dawn and a little bit of water and a little bit of vinegar, for them to clean the bathrooms. And those are pre-moistened. I just put them in a little, plastic, old Cool container or something. And, they can use that. And then it's either those things can be thrown away, or they can just be thrown in the washing machine, whatever, and reuse those again. So that's another good thing to do. Another place that several people had mentioned, and so I wanted to say this, was animal shelters. A lot of animal shelters, they are, the funds that they have, generally don't get to go to any kind of dog toys, or a lot of, they need help. And so, specifically, I've had people comment and say, who help and volunteer at animal shelters, that they often will, either line crates or, doggy carriers, things like that, with old t-shirts, old sweaters, and then they'll throw them away if they get dirty. But a lot of places can use that. Other things that you could do that people have mentioned in the comments of that post, it's really worth reading that, because I love some of the ideas that people had. There's lots of different things, but one specifically was, if you're crafty, making dog toys out of old jeans and things like that, to donate to either for your own dogs or to donate to animal shelters. So there's lots of different ways that you can get rid of old clothes. Just don't let your lack of ideas, keep them in your home, which I know I'm a big idea person. So sometimes I think, there's got to be a better way. But so it helps me to know what it is that I can do with that. Okay, so let's talk specifically about decluttering clothing. As I said, I am preaching to myself here because this is a struggle. It's something I'm really working on. Number one for me has been, and this, I wrote about this probably in the second year of blogging, but after a full year of focusing on clutter and keeping my house under control and realizing so many things, it took me about a year to finally get to the point where I could accept that clothing can be clutter. Because that just didn't make sense to me. For some reason, everything else could be clutter in my home. I could have too many dishes. I could have too much paper. I could have too many toys. But it just didn't occur to me that it was possible for clothing to be clutter, because clothing is useful and you need it. I mean, really, you do. You can't walk outside of the house without it. I promise you really, really shouldn't do that. But you have to have clothing. It's not like you can just have one pair of jeans or one shirt and that's it and wear the same thing every day. I guess you could, except that, things get gross and dirty and stinky. And so you have to have multiples of it. When you have more people, then you have to have it. And kids grow out of clothing all the time. And so it's always I think it was a kind of a safety net for me to feel like I had plenty and plenty of clothes, so that if I got behind on laundry, which I always did, then I was always going to have something else that I, could wear because I had plenty of clothes. To know that the kids had, clothes for 2 or 3 sizes up from where they were, so that whenever they grew out of something overnight, like they do, that I'd be able to have something. When when I was pregnant with my daughter, we were in a rent house, and it was a really difficult time because nesting, I just had no desire to put effort into this rent house that we were in, where we had all this stuff in the way. And I really was resenting being there at the time because of just the situation of, our old house not having sold. And then by the time it sold, all the other houses that would have worked in our small town were already sold. So it just was kind of one of those transitional times in life where I was frustrated. And one of my ways that I nested was buying baby clothes. Now, that was great in that I got all of my baby clothes that we could possibly need for the first year for, like 10 cents, 25 cents a piece, garage selling. But knowing that I was having a girl, especially after 2 boys, I would buy 2T and then 3T and 4T. And I finally said, okay, well, I'm not going to buy more than 3 sizes up. So, I had the equivalent of 3 wardrobes worth. Seriously, 3 different kids could be fine. With the clothes that I had for my daughter, for her next 3 years of life. That was kind of my rationale. But the truth was, laundry was always out of control. The clothes that we had, if they were all clean on a random rare occasion, then we didn't have any place to put them because, everything clean would, be twice or 3 times as much as I could put in our drawers or in our closets or anything like that. So accepting that clothing is clutter. For me, this was realizing that anything, no matter how useful it is, anything that I have so much of that I can't keep it under control is clutter, even clothes. Okay. So that was a big step for me, is to accept that and realize that. Okay. The second tip that I have is basically the same tip I always give when I'm talking about decluttering, and that's to do the easy stuff first. But specifically with clothing, doing the easy stuff first means the stuff I've been meaning to get rid of anyway. It's not like, I usually give the example in the laundry room of, you see the big, huge ladder that's really supposed to go in the garage, and that's the easy stuff, is moving that to where it's supposed to go. But with clothing, everything is kind of where it's supposed to go. It's all piled up on the dresser because it can't fit in the drawers. But looking at clothing and saying, okay, what have I been meaning to get rid of anyway? What have I thought? What have I seen 15 different times and passed over and not worn because I thought, you know what? I really don't like that. I need to get rid of it. But for whatever reason, I didn't get rid of it. And so it's that easy stuff. It's the stuff that's ripped or stained or too small or too big, or like that brown cardigan. It just, that one was slippery. And so it just fell to the side and, wasn't terribly flattering the way that I needed it to be. So, it just, I don't wear that very often because I just don't like it. The things I've meant to get rid of, but I haven't. That's easy. It's not the stuff that I, have to sit there and think, oh, do I get rid of this? Do I keep it? Oh, my life is going to be over because I can't decide. No, it's the stuff that's obvious. Oh, you know what? I never wear that shirt because it has a hole in it. Or, wow, I love that sweater, except that I don't feel like I can wear it because it has a stain on it. Whatever. Things that are obvious. That's the easy stuff first. Now, sometimes it can be very tempting for me to skip that easy stuff first step for some reason because it seems too easy and it seems too obvious. And when it seems obvious to me, I think, well, that is so easy. I'll do that later. But the truth is, that doesn't ever work out well for me. This is one of those, okay, here's how I've done it for years and it didn't work. So I've got to figure out how to do it now. But so, instead of skipping the easy stuff because that's going to be easy to do later, instead saying, I'm going to go ahead and start with what is easy. Okay. And getting that done, because then what happens is it's less visibly overwhelming. It's visually overwhelming when you have piles of stuff everywhere, but when those piles are smaller, and when you see a huge pile of stuff you're getting rid of, that helps build that decluttering momentum that I so desperately need in any project. And the next big thing is to treat your drawers as containers. And when I say drawers, I'm not talking like a Texan here. In Texas, drawers can mean your undies. Anyway, but drawers like of your chest of drawers or your dresser drawers, look at those as containers. And I know this is one of those things that now I look at and I think, oh my goodness, this is so obvious. Why didn't I get it? But the truth is, my drawers in my dresser are containers. They are established limits. Okay. I don't have to make some big decision about limits. The limits I have are the size of the drawers in the dresser that I have. I mean, that's how many clothes I can have without them spilling over. And I realized this when I was going through a sock drawer, and this, like I said, took me a long time to grasp, but going through a sock drawer, it never made sense to me. The whole, take one out when you put one in. Well, it's because my sock drawer was always overstuffed. It always had too much stuff in it. So there was no point in, taking one out and putting another one in. So I just put another one in and never took another one out. And it got more and more stuffed. But once I realized, okay, I can have as many socks as will fit in this sock drawer. That's all I can have. Okay. Then it kind of has this arbitrary, non-emotional limit that I'm then able to follow, and it helps me. And the truth that I have found is, there is such thing as, dressers that have drawers that are way too small. But most of the stuff I have, as far as a kitchen cabinets, closet, drawers, they're all big enough for me to have everything that I need. I mean, I really, truly have not found that if I, pare down to just the socks that will fit in my sock drawer, that I truly don't have enough socks. I pretty much do, especially as somebody who doesn't wear socks that much or who steals my husband's socks all the time. Sorry, honey. But treating your drawers as containers, treating your closet as a container, that for me is big. I'm like, if it's too stuffed full, then, that's a recipe for disaster for me. Having less stuff works better with my personality. I'm able to manage it better. But that's important to me, is to look at that and say, this is my limit. My closet size is my limit. My drawer is my limit, because for some reason it used to be that I would say, well, I don't have enough room in my closet. I need to buy some clothing racks or something like that. Well, that just, gave me more place to be a disaster. But anyway, okay. And then the thing with, so I taught laundry. Laundry is a real issue because a lot of times the piles are of things that I wore for 1 hour and thought, oh, this really isn't dirty, so I'm going to lay it here, as if that ever ends well. Anyway, but a lot of times laundry is part of the problem because laundry is so backed up that it's hard to, it's hard to think of decluttering when you think you've got to do all your laundry first. Now, in the kitchen one, I talked about, doing the dishes first so that you can have a realistic view of, how much space you have in your kitchen. For me, how much space do I have in my kitchen? I really don't know until all my dishes are clean and I try to put them away and see, well, laundry can go forever. And so, I had to tell myself that the stuff that is in the drawer, if I have a ton of laundry that's dirty and waiting to be washed, those things are the things that I've chosen to wear. And the things that are still in the drawers are generally the things that I've passed over 15, 16 times. So if I can go ahead and, do a load of laundry, but don't worry about getting all the laundry done first, if I can go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to go through my drawers and take out the stuff I don't love. If I'm not excited about wearing it, if I'd rather go and do a load of laundry than wear what's in this drawer, then probably I don't need to keep it. Okay. And that helps me. And then as I'm getting the laundry done and getting it under control, and I've talked before about my laundry routines. I will link to that in the show notes for podcast number 18. But as I do that, as I work on getting my laundry under control, then as I put that laundry away, which is a part of my laundry routine that I've finally accepted over the last year, I guess, is that I have to put it away right away. But as I'm putting that laundry away, then I can practice the 1 in, 1 out rule, which is, okay, so this drawer is full. It's my container. As I put away this shirt that I'm excited is clean again, so I can wear it again. Well, there's no room for it in this drawer, so I need to get rid of something that I like the least that's in there, okay, to keep that drawer from then getting over full. So it's using basically all those same decluttering techniques that I've had to learn the really hard way in my own house, but applying those to clothing specifically. Okay. Let me look real quick and see what time we're at. We're at 27 minutes. Okay. Children's keepsake baby clothes. I am not going to tell you if you should have another child or not, because I know that's one of the questions I tend to get is, what do I do with baby clothes when I don't know if I should have another kid or if we're going to have another kid? I'm like, well, that's none of my business. But so we'll maybe talk about that another time. But for now, for me personally, when I realized that we were probably, I'm not going to have any more children, I struggle with, what do I do with these clothes? I mean, do you keep them? Because they're all so cute. They all have so many memories. But the truth was only certain ones made my heart just melt, and so keepsake items, sentimental items, it helped me to just say, okay, can I keep one outfit? One very special. I remember how teeny tiny he looked in this. And I remember that every single time we were going to see somebody for the first time with our new baby, this is what I would put him in. This was my favorite newborn outfit. And so that's the outfit that I chose to keep out of the other ones. And I really don't remember or miss the other ones. I might see pictures of him in it and think, oh, that's cute. But which ones, and then my second child, it was this little Dallas Cowboys onesie, that he just was such a little chunk in. And I just looked at him, and every time I see that little outfit, I think, oh, that is the baby that I remember. I mean, that's what I picture in my head when I picture him as a baby. So it's those memories, choosing one. Can I keep one? Do I really need to keep a huge box full of these kids' clothes, baby clothes? When the truth is, half of those are probably stained from, that orange breastfeeding poop or whatever. What is it? Do I really need to keep all of those, or can I get that same memories flooding back feeling from just one outfit, maybe two? Okay. Let's see. So that's my thoughts on that personally. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end. It's at 30 minutes. Thank you so much. As I said before, I really appreciate those of you who let me know that the other ones were not loud enough. From what I can tell, I'm hoping these are going to be louder. But let me know if for some reason it's, you have technical difficulties, or I'm having technical difficulties. Please let me know so that I can work to improve that. And I thank you so much. If you've listened this long, hopefully you learned something. And I would love it if you would leave a review in iTunes. Those reviews help people find this podcast. It's kind of weird how things work in there. Nobody knows exactly, but it seems that when people leave reviews, that's, those words that you use are words that people are going to be able to search and find this podcast. So I appreciate y'all so much. And again, you can go to aslobcomesclean.com/connect. And there you will find all of our social media channels, and connect with us all over the place. You can email me at aslobcomesclean.com or message me on Facebook. And also go to aslobcomesclean.com/podcasts with an S to get the show notes from this show. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.